Let's talk a little bit about international HRM. And I must say, HRM in general, it's a messy profession. It really is. Probably you're a student, so you want a proof for that. This is Lisa, and when she started in her new HR job. She got a desk, she got a computer, she got everything. She could get started, and that's what she did. She started in her new job. And this is the same Lisa, only 6 months later. What happened?
She looks older.
Yeah. She has a lot of troubles on her mind, I guess. It's really a messy profession. I hope that I proved it to you. And why is it such a messy profession? What's on the desk? What's on the mind? What are the troubles that Lisa has to deal with? That's this. So that's quite a bit. That's quite a lot. And it's quite diverse. It's strategic issues. It's very operational issues. It's the content is changing. For example, let's see. The communication VKR. Well, what would that be? Best place to work implementation. 5 key position succession planning to be made. 6 people to be coached, and even organizing a day with Stenden is mentioned on this. Could be my agenda. It is my agenda, actually. This is what I thought, well, I want to show you a little bit of what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I collected, more or less. This is, at this moment, running projects, running things. So that's quite a bit. And it's not to pat myself on the shoulder. In the contrary, it's messy. So it has to stop. This doesn't work. If you just place somewhere a desk and you buy a computer and you buy a phone and say, well, I'm HR and let's start working, you will end up in this mess, for sure. So you have to do it different. You have to think first before acting. So that means when you design your job, your HR job, you have to think about what's my role and what's my position. What's my real contribution from all the things that I could do? Where can I add the most value? Because if you don't, you might spend all your time on the smaller things, and at the end, your boss might say, well, thank you for all the contribution, but what have you really added to this company? And I know it doesn't sound sexy, it doesn't sound modern to say start with an inside-out process, but really designing your job, designing an HR role, starts with an inside-out approach instead of an outside-in approach. We talk a lot about outside-in approach, asking people what do you expect from me, doing benchmarking, what do others do so that I can copy. That's not where you start when you design your role as HR. And actually, it's not where you start when you design your role as facility manager. It's not where you start if you design your role as finance manager or whatever profession that you will end up in, at least to my opinion. It starts with an inside-out process. Meaning that you think about what is the scope of my profession, what is in my profession and what's out of my profession. Different questions come up where I have to decide, is this really into the profession of HR? Or is it for someone else? Or do I have to do it? Can I really add their value? And of course, you have to deliver service. Right? That's without doubt. But that doesn't mean that you have to collect everything that people come up with or management come up with. So you have to think about the scope of your profession first. And you have to think about, but what's the role that I want to play in this company? In your books, chapter 4, 5, I think it was 4, Jane, the chapter that you had to study, what I've understood, different things are mentioned about the role of the profession that a person could hold. It's a very important thing to study. It's a very important thing to think about and to really understand. I will explain later as well how we as HR thought about it and what type of role we would like to hold. And And as I said, also think about what is the value that I can add because of the person who I am. Because there are things that I can do good and there are things that I can do not so good. So it's important to know yourself, to know your competences, to know where you're strong, but of course also, yeah, what can I add out of the profession? What is really HR? What's my role? What can I add to the company? Where can I deliver the biggest contribution to the goals of the company or organization? If you've done all that, you started with that inside-out process, then it's time to make the contact with all the others, your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? You have to think about it. Who are my main stakeholders? Appointing your stakeholders has very much to do with what kind of role you want to play. Because if you say, my first concern are employees, then probably your role into the organization will be different than when you say, no, my first stakeholder is management. Probably different. I'll show you later as well what kind of decisions we made in that. And if you've appointed your stakeholders, you could ask them, what do you need? What are your concerns? How can I help you? How can I help you to reach your goals? How could we build a stronger team? What can I do for you? All those kind of questions, the outside-in questions. And as well, of course, you should know what's the direction the organization is heading for, what is expected from HR as a contribution to the whole. So you have to understand the mission, the vision of the organization and the organizational goals. What are we really heading for and what is needed to be able to reach that? So, and of course, yeah, you have to make your plans, your HR planning, aligned with those bigger company goals. And that sounds very easy, I think. But believe me, most common mistake is to start with the outside-in approach. I was 2 weeks ago in the strategic session with our finance team, our international finance team. They exactly wanted to start there. I said, we don't have to think first, what does everyone expect from us as finance? That's somewhat later this day. We first have to think about our role. This week, I talked with our marketing manager, and she's new into the company, so she's also making the picture in terms of what could we do, how could marketing add more value to the company, etc., etc. And I also noticed that she started about her talking about, we have 20 stakeholders. I said to her, that's fantastic, but shouldn't you really first think about what's your role, what's your profession, what's into the scope of your profession, what's out of the scope of your profession? Shouldn't you start with an inside-out process first? So as I said, it sounds easy to do it, but the easiest thing is to do the opposite and to end up resulting in an even more messy profession as it is, which counts for HR, but for other professions as well, I guess. Any questions? Doubts? Disagreements? Okay. I know that on this slide there's way too much information. Sorry, I'm not a communication manager in this company, so don't blame me for that. But I wanted to show you this because this is what we have at our HR department as a very big whiteboard. Jane has seen it. It's about 4 meters wide and 2 meters high, I think. And it's this, and it's our strategic board. It's strategic and operational action board. And what's on it, we started also there with the inside-out process. We thought about, what's our role? What's our scope? What's in our business, in HR field, and what's out of the HR field? So that's where we really started. So you see 1 up until 6. Those is what we call our strategic HR areas. So that are the areas which are making our profession. Only those 6. So that's a decision that we took 5 years ago, I think. That this is our scope of working. So that means that things that doesn't fit in that scope, we have to think about, do we really want to put effort in this? Do we want to provide that services because the question comes up? Or is it that someone else could do better because it's not into our scope of profession and it's not really into the scope of our competence? Because those 6 areas, this is where we want to be strong, very strong. This is where we want to focus our time and energy on. So this is where we want to build our expertise on, those 6 areas. So the A is explaining more or less the internal part of doing the inside-out thinking, meaning that we said when it comes to the role, service providing, directing, what do we really want? We want to direct first. And I think that that's a really important decision to take when you are in a HR position, which is mostly considered as being a service providing a service, like marketing is in many cases, like facility management is in many cases. But if you have a profession, you also have an idea out of that profession what you could add to the company. So if you only ask people in terms of, please give your questions and I will serve you with my services, with my content, then probably they will not come to the center, the edge of your profession which you hold. So you have to think about, you know best what your profession could add. So that's where you start. At least that's where we want to start. So the words directing and service providing, that's a balance that we are looking for. And but first of all, we make our own plans. So we make our own plans when it comes to HR, which are aligned, as said before, with the company goals. Our stakeholders said that also. So think about who are your stakeholders. First stakeholder for us is management. So we are much aligned with what management expects from us, because management, the managers, are representing the company and the company goals. So for that simple reason, we think that HR is also the first stakeholder that we are in contact with and that we are talk with and that we share ideas with. In the first place is management. Behind the A there's employees, potential employees, like maybe you guys. Steven once was a potential employee, and now he's responsible for 10 million of sales after 2 years. I think it's fantastic. I'm really proud of those kind of people, I must say. And government. Government might sound a little bit strange, but government, of course, they provide us legislation, laws, and all those kind of things. So we are very much into that field as well. It's not that we talk a lot with Rutte or Merkel. That's too big of a step to make. But of course, that's the world that we live in. We have to deal with all those kind of things. So all our policies are focused on those stakeholders and the demands of those stakeholders. Okay, questions? Clear? Logic? As well? Good. Okay, so that's where we started. And this is more or less fixed. Of course, we could, over time, we could review that. We say, well, maybe we have a strategic HR area 7, might be. But for the moment, this is it. We have it for 5 years, and we continue in for the coming 5 years also to work like this with those fields, with those mission and contribution and role that we've chosen. That doesn't mean that our work is not changing, because it's changing all the time. And that has to do with the outside-in process, where we have to know what's really needed for the company. What are the company goals, and how is the company changing, and where are we aiming for? What are the goals? What are the measures that we want to achieve as a whole, as a company? So we have to understand that, and that's then B. And I will show you in a slide later how we do that, and I also want you to work on it a little bit. So we make statements on that. So we have 5 statements, which are high over statements. that is more or less the total direction, giving the direction that we're heading for. I will show you later. Now that we know where the company is going for, we think about, yeah, what does that mean for our HR practices? How could we, now that we call ourselves an expert in this field, what can that field contribute to that particular issue of the company? What can this add? So we go through the different areas, the different 6 HR strategic result areas. We come up with all kind of ideas and plans, and so that's C out of those 6. And then we say, yeah, before getting messy, bring it down to what's really key. How could we prioritize into action plans and annual plans? So that's D. And we designed it, as I said, 5 years ago or so. And I started writing a document. I said, chapter 1 has to do about role. And I was typing, and chapter 2, I was typing. Chapter 3 has to do about strategic HR. And at a certain moment I thought, yeah, this is nonsense. Why, for whom am I typing this document? Maybe for myself, to make my thoughts clear. But I thought, well, do I really need it? To keep my thoughts clear? I don't need it. So, and I work a lot with brown paper. You do that maybe still. Jane was a little bit surprised. It's old-fashioned, I know. But to put up brown paper on the wall and to use it as an inspiration to say, okay, so we have a process. What's the end result of the process? Well, Jasper is also working on a brown paper, for example, on optimizing our recruitment process. The end result of it on the brown paper is after 2 years of hirement, we say, wow, what a fantastic guy we hired or lady we've hired. And what do we have to do to be able to reach that? So at a certain moment, I had that on the wall on my office, the brown paper covering whole my wall. And it was about HR strategy. And this more or less came out. So I thought, well, this is something that I want to capture. So I have it now in a more definite way. It's not on paper anymore, but as a big whiteboard, as I explained. Yeah, a little bit about outside in. This is information that you know, but I just want to emphasize the importance of it. It means that you have to think about what is the mission of the organization, and that might sound as something, yeah, that's there. But actually 5 years ago, within this company, on our website was a mission, but in the minutes of management meetings, there was, from some years earlier, a different definition. We had different definitions of our mission, and that's what's quite strange. So, and it was an initiative from HR, from my side, to say, shouldn't we think about this? Shouldn't we think about what is really our mission? Because at that time, for example, to give you an impression, we had as a mission that we want to provide our shareholders with a revenue of at least 8% a year, and those kind of inspirational missions. And we talked about it within the management team and said, is this really why we come out of our beds early, work long days and work hard, and are inspired because of making money for people who already have money? It wasn't really triggering us. So we thought about it again, rephrased it, and we said, yeah, what we really want is that we want to contribute to the development of the responsible food of a growing world population, and Stephen explained it. That's a huge challenge. At the moment, 8% of the total world population we reach with our products every year again, and we think that's quite an achievement. We aim for 9%, as Stephen told, in 2020, and that's a big step to make. So that's the mission. That's the reason why we exist as a company. The vision is what we aim for, and that means that the whole world is more or less the playground where we want to work, and it is our vision to play a key role to all profitable markets and to be the preferred supplier in the potato business worldwide. Well, if you have that, then you could align your strategy and your objectives, or vice versa. You set your objectives and say, how could we reach it? What kind of plans could we make? What is the strategy to reach those objectives? And that's, of course, what we do. Every 5 years, we have a new circle. So that means that for 5 years, we say, well, this is how we work on it, and make your annual plannings to reach those measures in the coming 5 years. So last year, 2014, was a new update of the 5-year cycle. And bottom line, the values being our ethical compass as employees. What we try to do as a company, before we talked a lot about strategy. And we as a management, we thought, well, that's good that we do it. We share, we're open about our strategy, we talk a lot about it, we send emails, we give them speeches every now and then to all the people. All kind of moments where we share our strategy, and we noticed that we didn't really succeed in getting the message across. Is it still okay with the microphone? Fantastic. We didn't really succeed to get a message across. And we talked about it within the management team and said, yeah, isn't it obvious? Because for us, we see the total picture, we talk about it, we work on it. But if we talk about it towards 275 people, it is in bits and pieces. So, and they have to make the puzzle afterwards. That's difficult. So we said, we really have to talk about our values more, because that's what people can do. That's what people can recognize themselves in. That's where people can measure themselves up to. And that if we design values that are interconnected with our mission and our vision, then people know what type of behavior they could show to be able to deliver to what we want to be as a company. And those are our values. You can also find them in the canteen, you can find them everywhere. We use those values in our appraisal interviews. When we talk about people, when it comes to talent assessment, then we start with our values. So our values are really deep into those companies. We use it on all kinds of issues. Peace, rest. Just as a question, from all the things that HR could do and things that are considered to be more or less HR tasks, issues, what of those do you think HR can deliver most on when looking to revenue growth and profit margin of a company? Do you have any idea? This was published by Boston Consultancy Group last year. Any suggestions? Would it be developing leadership, maybe? The topic that we want to talk about today. Would it be performance management? What would be, if we have to choose to make it less messy and say, well, we pinpoint ourselves on where we could add the most value, what would it be? Just lucky guess, you. Which one? Yeah. You. Managing talent? Why? Smart thinking. Others? Other suggestions? Thoughts? You.
Global people management and international expansion.
Okay, why? Global people management?
Because it's an international company and you're focusing on selling your products outside of the country. So also important to include
Yeah.
that.
Understand your thinking. Yeah. And the funny thing is that Boston Consultancy, so I don't want to debate with them on what if this is correct, but this is what they figured out, that if you look at very successful companies, they are really strong in delivering on recruitment. And that was, for me, that was quite a surprise, to be honest. And I think that if I would ask other HR managers, what are the priorities out of your field of profession, I think they will not say delivering on recruitment. So that's quite interesting. I think that they also would mention those kind of things, or leadership, or the fact that the development of people. I think that they would mention that first as well. Secondly is onboarding. So after hiring, making sure that people are on board and that they find a good place to be able to deliver their contribution, managing talent. So just interesting, I think. Yeah, again, about our field of profession, HR, how we look at it, the 6 result areas, as we call them. So we divide it, as I said, we want to be very good in those. So that means that you have to specialize. So we, as a team of HR professionals within this company, we divided those into this. So Jan and Adri, those are my direct colleagues. I'm responsible for the first 2, so I'm responsible for the strategy of HR as well as for workforce planning. Workforce planning has to do with what do we have available in terms of talent and competences, etc., and measuring that, what do we really need today. And hopefully, of course, that's close together, that you have people and competences of people that you all really need. But also, of course, yeah, and what do we need in future? So it needs a future perspective to be able to make that connection, have a good insight in where is the company heading for, and what kind of developments are coming towards us to be able to design a team and design a job requirements that not only fit for today but also fit for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Jan is responsible for education and personal development, so it all has to do with your personality as well as your ambition, your knowledge, your capabilities, your skills, your talent, all the things also Stephen talked about. Remuneration and employee benefits, very important one as well, of course, because labor is a kind of exchange of talent versus what you get back from it. That's not only salary, it's also all kind of other issues, like pension schemes or shares. All our HZPC employees can buy HZPC shares, so they are a shareholder as well of this company. That gives another interaction as well, another connection, I think, of people with this company. And individual working conditions. For example, when we hire a new person, we talk with that person, what is important for you? And so, for example, for the one person, that could be, for me, it's really important to have knowledge of what kind of development I can make in future. And maybe that would be good to add a personal, an individual budget for trainings and education. So, okay, we could do that on an individual basis. We'll do that. Vitality and well-being. Also very important, it has to be fit for the job. Not only today, also for tomorrow, being able to produce, to deliver, to keep your earning capacity on a high level or an even higher level because you're growing. Throughout the age that you have, throughout the phase that you're in life, being able to stay fit and vital. We can do a lot within HZPC to provide that, to facilitate that, but of course at the end it's the person, him, herself, to be able to take up that responsibility. And yes, we have to deliver on reporting. We have to think about what are the measures and how are we working towards that measures, what kind of information does the management need, but also very operational, what do people need when one of the ladies gets a baby within a few weeks, what are the rights? Maybe she might come up to ask. So from strategic to more operational issues of delivering on reporting and information to the different stakeholders that we have. Okay, so and what does the executive board explicitly expect from HZPC? From HR, sorry. So it's too much of text. Luckily that I'm not the communication manager. They would fire me for that. But those are what we call the we call it the dominant themes. And we have 5 of those, or 4 of those. And I just want to show you the first one. As I told earlier, we talk with management as being our first stakeholder about what's the direction of the company and how can we translate that into HR issues, and how could we make high over topics where we could align our plans with in the expertise fields that we hold. So for example, HZPC, and this is what the executive board explicitly expects from HR, HZPC gives ambitious, talented and highly educated people the opportunity to make the difference. People who add value, diversity, by both the background, knowledge, experience, as well as their personality. That's what we want to do. So you could think of all kinds of actions. So you see 1.1 and 1.8, etc. All the plannings that we made to be able to contribute to those high over goals regarding to HR. And of course, we also, as HR, we also expect something from our stakeholders, in particular from management. We expect that everyone takes responsibility for the above ascribed starting points. It's important. If you make plans and others say, well, nice that you made the plans, but we don't agree, you have a kind of a problem. And also that the board and management facilitates HR in enrolling this throughout the international organization. You cannot do it alone. You need the support of management.